not friendly for male content creators. For the longest time, the exception is the East because VTubing there is a bit more mainstream in the greater otaku culture. In the West, not so much. The industry here is overwhelmingly female-dominated. Most of the relevant audiences are other men who just want to see cute girls doing cute
it's Sarah and
things.
Fillion.
Most men were relegated to peasant jobs like editors, clippers, reactionaries,
Peasant
and even
jobs!
professional simps. But then came a lightning in a bottle for the most unexpected company. Nijisanji English's own Hololive myth.
I love the intro.
Luxium, their EN branch's first male group. Their debut song reached 1 million views unexpectedly. Their tweets started getting interactions. Even I made this video documenting their massive rise.
Yeah,
It aged
I remember
like an
those
abused
videos.
child celebrity, but it was relevant for its time.
I
Heck,
love his
even made another
jokes.
dedicated
They're
video
so
on
good.
Vox Akuma himself. In 2022, Luxium was on top of the world, actively competing
Bow
against
collab.
Hololive English's numbers, dominating the Southeast Asian otaku culture, and it seemed like it was only going
That's
to get
kinda cool
higher
to be on
from
bus.
here on out. Or at least, that's what many of their fans thought, including myself. Because
See, this sound effect is an effect that I wanted my editors to use. I wonder what it's called. Can we ask Calamari what it is, Yuriko?
come literally the next year, we started to see the cracks. Of course, the tale of Nijisanji EN's downfall
Hey, that's
has
my
been
video.
recorded many times, but in this video,
that's my
I'd
video
like
too.
to point the microscope on the face of the branch itself,
The
Vox Akuma.
This
Because
one.
he was the king of not just Nijisanji English, but the king of male VTubing as well.
That sound.
Those who followed on his stead became popular with him. His presence elevated the numbers and dynamics to those around him. No longer. Today, we look at the tragic downfall of English VTubing's king of male VTubers, Vox Akuma. When Luxium started rising, Mr. Rias was actually the one who led the charge at first.
Oh, really?
His infamous interaction with Mr. Rogers, as well as his general comedic bits, made him Luxium's first favorite. But come the middle of the year, Vox Akuma easily took his spot's place. And this was for one major reason: pandering. It was clear to many people that the reason why Luxium was so successful was because they tapped into a niche previously untouched in the English side of VTubing: the female demographic. VTubing's overwhelming number of audience always has been men, like I mentioned, and Luxium, with their handsome design and kiss your homies goodnight sort of banter, they managed to innovate. The reason why Vox Akuma started to get more popular than everyone in the group was because he was the one who went all in, shamelessly indulging on his horny female fans.
Yo, he's
with
almost
wildest
naked in there.
imaginations and serving English VTubing's most potent boyfriend experience. Everyone in Luxium didn't really do this. At most, they would validate their audience, tell them they love or appreciate them or something. But nobody was licking this audience's digital pussies or ravaging their digital throats quite like Vox was. People outside Vox Akuma's audience had a very strong impression on him and his audience, especially Hololive fans. Notice how I said strong, not good. Because the first drama he was involved in was in March 2022, roughly 4 months after they debuted. There was an accidental Discord server leak from a fellow Nijisanji member, Petra. In this leak, we were able to see that a few Nijisanji members were shit-talking Hololive, and people didn't really like that. The biggest
I remember this leak.
lightning rod of the outrage was Fulgur himself, who was being smug that Hololive console didn't do as good and that a lot of Hololive fans were insecure and mad that Nijisanji was thriving. The second biggest lightning rod was Vox, who said Hololive tech issues in shambles, Niji thriving.
Yeah, that didn't age well.
The context that I personally believe in and had peddled in the past was that this was in response to Shu, because Shu was their tech guy. This was supposed to be nothing more than a joke, so I didn't really take it seriously. I threw a lot more shade at Fulgur's out-of-pocket comment, but a lot of Hololive fans didn't really give out as much grace. Before this drama, there was a war brewing between Hololive EN and Nijisanji EN fans, you see.
But you don't watch Rice either and you're Chinese? Shit, so I must be doing it right. You missed it, but I was telling chat how I learned how to do a Chinese egg soup the other day. Niji beggars are fucking obnoxious and started trying to be subtle about their shilling, so mods had to become more aggressive in their purge. Does a Niji member showing up for a couple of seconds in a primarily Hololive video have to get that post deleted? Generally no, the same applies for Hololive talent cameo and Nijisanji video stream. Yeah, because in Hololive and Nijisanji, in JP at least, they do collabs.
Tribalism was at an all-time high. Hololive talents like Calliope Mori unfollowed a few of them. She did refollow them back, but it was clear that it pushed a sensitive spot for her. Though this fueled the tribalism, it didn't really do much against Vox, aside from like making him kinda weird out to outsiders. The real drama happened shortly after. May 2022. Fellow Nijisanji member Reimu and Vox were streaming at the same time. Reimu was playing FNAF while Vox had a roleplay date ASMR stream. All of a sudden, Reimu...
We know that story, chat. We know that story, but I'm still excited to see how Nuzagi will talk about it.
Decided to message Vox to help her out for a game. Vox momentarily paused the date stream to help her out, but when Vox hit that end stream button, he awoke to see that his people were mad. Like, mad, especially the Chinese.
I'm surprised that he didn't get messages like that in the chat too.
Not at him, but on Reimu. All because Reimu dared to disrupt their date together. Death threats were lobbed her way, a harassment campaign started, social media was filling up with all sorts of angry, schizophrenic ramble about how Reimu was a whore. You would think that the appropriate response for this was pushback from Vox Akuma himself. Tell these people to cool it, tell them to shut the fuck up, or try to de-escalate matters, but nope. That's not what Vox did. What he did instead was to lightly touch upon the subject, only implying dissatisfaction but still defending his fans. People didn't like this. The greater Niji community did not like this. The backlash was intense.
I'm honestly done with how badly Vox handled these situations. First, people wanted you to act fast because it's your fucking fan base, not trolls, your kindreds, and you could have actually killed the whole issue with just a tweet supporting Reimu. Yeah, it was a two-pronged controversy that he handled badly. First of all, he didn't condemn the people harassing Reimu. First, it was the people were upset because his date was interrupted. So that was the first level. Then secondly, it got worse because he didn't condemn the people harassing Reimu, who is his coworker, and well, we didn't know back then, and that makes it even more fucked up if they were in a relationship then. So that's even worse, actually.
But thankfully, he would later address this matter, firmly saying that none of the things he does is real, and that this is all roleplay, fucking obviously, and that he doesn't claim that people throwing off and randomly harassing other people. He would even say that he doesn't like them, a sterner, more absolute defense of his friends and his reputation. And while yes, did his recover his PR, it put a bad impression of his audience's character, because in the background, everyone, everywhere, was starting to recognize that Vox's audience was pretty fucking toxic. Not just within Nijisanji's own community, but even to people beyond it, even to his friends like Shoto, which a lot of Nijisanji fans seem to think that he was part of Nijisanji for some reason, to a point that Mista had to address and clarify something so obvious. And even still, these fans still kept harassing him to collab with them more, only to end up being angry that Shoto was being disrespectful in some kind of way somehow. This tiny chaos and dissatisfaction beyond Vox's audience is important to note, because while yes, within your walls you are thriving and the economy of your kingdom is still flowing greatly, it becomes a lot harder to expand and trade beyond it.
I love the way Nuzagi speaks, man. I missed the Nuzagi videos. I'm so glad he's back. The
tail end of Vox's golden years, people even inside the Nijisanji community recognized the signs, faced the insane...
Has something happened recently? I listened to his Twitter audios, but he's talking like he's walking on eggshells. I don't really get what he's trying to say. Well, he is walking on eggshells. That guy was so audience captured. I don't know if his most parasocial fans are like the biggest whales or something, but he should have filtered out the undesirables at this point. But he always seemed to me like somebody who didn't have much of a backbone. Very, very scared of his audience. How long after his debut was this? Because I feel like 1.5 years or 2 years after you start being a content creator, you should start settling in a little bit. I get it that at first you're more careful, you know, it's your first time having your opinion exposed to a lot of people. It's very scary. But then again, he's not really talking about controversial matters.
Reality of Vox's own toxic fanbase. Vox still got involved in minor drama, such as in August of 2022 when he was making fun of Sonny's mom. Fans from China who had a culture against such behaviors were super mad and demanded Vox apologize, but...
I mean, his fanbase doxed him. That's how far parasocialism can go. It's a double-edged sword.
This was a nothing burger. Vox addressed it, we all chalked it up to culture clash, and that was it. Yet at the same time, while these dramas were minor, they were signs of a greater issue. See, the problem with catering to Parasocial's fucks as hard as Vox did isn't just you getting pigeonholed into your own content, it's also the fact that you have to cater to these insufferable fucks. You are stuck in a horrible, uninviable place where you can't go hard on your fans too much or they'll rebel, but at the same time, people outside your walls are afraid of your fans just as much as you are, so it's hard to engage with you. With this fanbase, even if you find the courage to try and hard wrangle them, it's not going to work most of the time. You can't unschizo a schizo. His chat was constantly spammed by emotes.
You can't unschizo a schizo.
During this specific era of his popularity, his audience was more to blame than himself. Vox...
The fans Vox got is the kind that would stab him and call love. Oh my god, dude. I hope it doesn't happen. I do feel bad for him in a way. I mean, yes and no, but there is one part of him that I do feel bad about. And it's like, he's extremely popular. He's a content creator. It comes with all these perks, right? You know, influence, wealth, fame. He gets his merch everywhere. He's plastered on buses and stuff. But at the end of the day, he doesn't own himself. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a concept for all these people, all these girls that are projecting their fantasies on him, and he gives them their dopamine hit. And when somebody looks at him, all they see are the perks. He's not even a person anymore. And it's inherently very lonely. Because once you become a public figure, you don't own yourself anymore. You belong to the public. I don't know how to explain this, but it's very prevalent. So now, if he wants to have a private life, all of that doesn't exist for him anymore. And I did see a clip of him talking about this, which made me empathize with him a little more. But then it's hard when you learn all the other stuff. But that's another story. That's separate. You can empathize for parts of somebody without, agreeing with everything else that they've done, obviously. But I felt kind of bad for him. He said something like, ideally, in this job, once I turn off the computer, I'm done. I can be myself. Ideally, that's how you think it's gonna go. And then he was like, but then I realized that once I turn off the computer, that doesn't happen. The problems that he has online, they continue even after he stops streaming. And it's like they get closer and closer to him. They follow you. It's crazy because for most of us, online is an escape from reality. But what happens when your escape becomes your problem box? Do you escape back into reality then? Like, how does it work? Anyway, there's some thoughts to think about. Are VTubers public figures since they're anonymous? Yeah, they are. They still are, yeah. And a lot of them, it's only a matter of, they get doxxed too. They get harassed. They get stuff sent to their house. You get threats. You have stalkers.
Never intended to do BFE when he joined Nijisanji. He just felt obligated to do what the audience he captured.
And once you become famous enough, the journalists just publish an article on you and they'll put your real name in. They don't even give a shit. All the famous content creators, they all have their name out. Valkyrie, XQC, all of that. I don't know about VTubers. They can try to keep their anonymity. Thankfully, the community is respectful of that.
Wanted him to do because they kept flinging him shit tons of money. One thing you gotta know is that throughout a huge part of 2022, Vox received huge sums of money for months on end. $100,000 almost every single month in donations from his gachis. Every month, brother, and that's just donations. Ads, membership money, merch money, and sponsorship money aren't even taken into account. So when you start from nothing into getting that kind of money on the regular, it can be hard to cope or even, for a lot of people, empathize with that kind of mental rewiring. To a certain extent, it's understandable why Vox felt like he had to cater to these people. These people, even if some were freaks, were the reason why he had so much money, why he had so much freedom, ironically. It's scary to distance yourself away from that big of a bag and that kind of external validation. Such is the core problem of the parasocial Andy streamer. Some people are built for this sort of content. A lot of VTubers sustain it healthily, even for years, without developing a problematic audience. Even if there are freaks in his chat or tweets causing a scene, telling them to get the fuck out isn't necessarily going to work the way he wants it to. It's a dangerous fanbase. We've seen such a case with the downfall of the GFE queen Uraharusha, who got cancelled when it turns out that she and another famous Japanese content creator Mafu was in a relationship. But these sorts of fan bases don't just get dangerous when they start hating you. I would argue they become even more dangerous when they love you too much. He was going on a hiatus to deal with emergency family matters, but False ID received reports and broadcasted the news that Vox's actual address got leaked. A stalker, it seems, was able to pinpoint accurate information and even determine his personal Instagram account by referencing photos that Vox himself posted on his corporate Twitter. Of course, we don't actually know if this doxer and stalker was a fan of him or not, but such an egregious action is not beyond what a Vox fan could do and want to. The reason I say that is because now on a deleted site called Nifco, aka the dox site, these sorts of information and discussions were freely thrown around. Yes, there is a Japanese website dedicated to finding and talking about private information of VTubers. Who are the majority of the users, you may ask? Nijisanji English fans. Vox fans. There is a saying that goes, the chat reflects the streamer. This statement is generally true, I would like to think. But sometimes there can be exceptions. It's not an all-encompassing fact. I don't think any streamer or content creator should be held 100% responsible for what their audience is doing. You can't really tard wrangle all your fans. It's just impossible. Even if you're not putting a call to action, even if you tell your fans not to harass anyone and to play nice, some small fraction of idiots in any fanbase will always do so. And even if that fraction is a minority, their actions will still reflect badly on the streamer itself. Such is a problem with Vox Takuma's fan. No matter what he did, the goodwill he would generate, that small fraction of his audience will always haunt him, will always make him look bad. In 2023, we have seen an utter collapse of Nijisanji's reputation, and Vox was one of the heavier targets for the mockery. The Zion Lanza drama, the Gundo Mireille termination, the Nina Kosaka graduation,
that's when I got in.
Graduation. All of this happening, and the toxicity of his own fanbase has had profound effects on Vox's mental health. He was already diagnosed with ADHD before. In fact, this diagnosis was used as a sort of explanation for a lot of his actions. Fans were recognizing the fact that he was not in the best shape. In fact, fans recognized more than that as well. It would seem that collaborations with a lot of people have disappeared. Vox's banter with anyone was genuinely a fun time to watch, so it was sad to see that over time, his collaborations with the very few people his fans enjoyed him interacting with has ceased. One-on-one collabs with Shoto, for example, has noticeably stopped, citing that shippers and toxic fan behaviors ruined it for them. He also stopped getting invited to many events or shows that would have multiple appearances from other guests. Because of Vox's fanbase, even in 2023, people outside Nijisanji were rather reluctant to collab with him. But as long as he can still make his content, as long as his fanbase's thirst can be quenched, he can make it, right? After all, I've been talking a lot about the negatives of having his own walls up, stuck within this sort of fanbase, but in reality, it's not all bad. Even if he didn't get as many donations as before these days, he was still bringing in mad money. Still had a loyal viewer base, could still do his ASMRs and roleplays, and he even made a feature-length lore video. There was a bit of a drama around this movie he made. Vox and Nijisanji accused a crypto company basically of violating copyright by using a piece of the music that he used for this movie, but then it turns out that said music didn't even belong to them. It was purchased from a third party, so technically no copyright was being violated. But like, that ADHD kinda made him jump the gun over here, huh? Being a corpo VTuber is a job. It can't just be a hobby, and just like any other job, sometimes you just gotta deal with it. As long as you stick to your own circle, do what you gotta do, you'll be fine, to a certain extent. But like a real job, sometimes you can't do it as effectively because your stupid boss said so. All of a sudden, YouTube just declared that ASMRs are to not have any adult themes. Otherwise, say goodbye to your content. Many VTubers were hit hard by this change. Some channels even just straight up died. Vox was one of the few people that was affected. All those 18 plus ASMRs that he had lovingly created for his audience just gone. The reason this is a big deal is because ASMRs are perhaps one of the greenest evergreen content. A person can and will always have a reason to go back to a particular ASMR that they like. But beyond its financial and tangible usefulness, it also served as a historical and cultural marker for Vox Akuma's content and identity. He was the Nijisanji BFE, the John boyfriend experience. A lot of that BFE content needing to get deleted? It's just a waste. But perhaps this wasn't all that bad.
YouTube made a lot of changes.
Perhaps after the initial distress, Vox was relieved by this in some sort of way. With all of that deleted, perhaps he would feel like doing his ASMR more poignantly. Even toned down the intensity of his ASMR, a reason to refuse uncomfortable scenarios or requests. And besides, it's not all his ASMRs that were being deleted, just the more spicy ones.
Yeah.
Perhaps that even despite Nijisanji's declining reputation, he can continue and maintain this audience that likes him and his content. An exclusive group of people that will not be affected by the happenings of the greater Niji community. Those were what the walls were there for after all. Maybe in the coming year, he can stabilize his content. And while his best year was behind him, perhaps he can still carve out something special for himself. That is not what happened. In February 2024, Nijisanji EN terminated Salen Tatsuki, one of VTubing's most beloved creators. This followed months upon months of instances where Salen had her requests frequently rejected by Nijisanji or that she got screwed up in some sort of way. She responded to this termination, but the fierce backlash that came from her and the greater VTubing community had to prompt a response from Niji EN itself. And shockingly, they did. It was perhaps the greatest, biggest sin ever recorded in English VTubing. One of the people responsible for this, actually no, the central figure of this was none other than Vox Akuma. Vox was the biggest voice of the trio that presented this pushback. In this announcement, he said that before things went down, Salen sent Niji a legal document airing out her frustrations and her intent to leave immediately. He claims that Salen peddled falsehoods in her legal document, said that he felt hurt because this document contained information from other talents, and that she secretly recorded a call with him to use evidence against Nijisanji. He denies the fact that Nijisanji had favoritism, said he doesn't think the confrontation against her was harassment, and lastly, he says that he thoroughly reviewed this document, but this was a document that only legal entities aside from Salen herself was supposed to be able to view. I would attempt to debunk these claims in the video, but this isn't a Nijisanji video, this is a Vox video. I can really only cover what happened to Vox himself specifically, because what exactly happened was a shit show for him. The phrases he said during the black screen stream became a meme. There is no favoritism, and in my opinion, this is not a form of harassment. Because in Nijisanji, there was obvious bias towards Vox Akuma and Luxium as a whole, owing to them being the biggest in the entire brand.
Yeah, because he's like, well, I don't see any difference. I don't see any favoritism.
Vox and Luxium got invited to fancy dinners with the CEO while in Japan.
Yeah.
Nobody got consistent merch releases like they did. They were getting milked the fuck out. Of course, it's the nature of any business to have blatant favoritism or an extended...
Yeah, I know that Nuzagi believes that there has to be a little bit of favoritism in VTuber companies, because obviously if you're pulling more weight, pulling in more viewers, you should have your project a little like more funded than the others, but there's also needs to be an equilibrium. And for example, the thing with Niji is that I think what frustrated people was not just that, is that even Salen, who was doing great for the female side, didn't get her projects to go through, didn't get her projects approved, yada yada. So it was like inconsistent across the board.
Leniency for your biggest and most influential assets. But to deny that none of it exists is whack. And to deny or outright dismiss the fact that your friend was in emotional distress and almost killed herself, to basically invalidate and that claim that what they did to her was not harassment, all without any emotion in your voice, it was weird. It was sociopathic, to see from him even. He seemed blind to his privilege and position in Nijisanji in the bigger industry, seemed to lack empathy, seemed like he was just emotionally manipulative. He could have just said no, not include himself in this whole debacle. No, he wasn't forced into this. All implications point to the fact that to some degree, he wanted to participate. He lacked responsibility, digging his own grave only to bitch about it later. And that
he said the most out of the three of them too.
Did not sit right with people beyond Nijisanji. After the black screen stream, Nijisanji EN as a whole were losing followers and viewers, Vox included for obvious reasons. And people started to bring up old allegations from Vox's past, also they could find a reason to hate him even more. For context, there was a previously dismissed accusation against Vox when he debuted, claiming that he did horrible things in his PL as a creator named Vade. Some of these accusations include flirting with a minor, when he himself was a minor, being emotionally manipulative, making out with a 19.
I remember covering this dog. It was kind of like stupid. He was doing some dumb shit, but also like he was young and it was so long ago.
Year-old woman when he was 17, and that he was mean because he told an autistic fan that he just needed to stop being a whiny bitch. Another person would even create an entire Google Docie recapping this whole situation.
I don't remember that.
But again, these allegations were bad. There was a reason it was dismissed. Bros were regurgitating second-hand information without any screenshots, trying to cancel Vox for what he did when he was fucking 17. Some people lapped it up, but it seemed like most people thought it was a nothing burger, me included. Throughout the following months, Vox would continue to stream. He initially streamed on Bilibili to get away from the outraged YouTube audience, but he eventually slowly eased back to streaming here. Even had an entire 3D all recorded. But after the drama, the Nijisanji community has been largely disconnected from the greater industry and only came in frequent waves via a collab. The Nijisanji EN community has basically labored a major part of the industry as their enemies or something. But despite the volume of this Twitter fanbase, Vox's numbers continued to decline. One of the more interesting points to note after the fallout was his former friend, his most famous friend, Shoto, the person Vox grew together with in the space, said he doesn't fuck with Vox anymore, that they're no longer friends. One can only speculate about why this is, but a lot of conclusions point to the full picture his many dramas painted, that he might be emotionally manipulative. He was a bad friend. He was an alleged bully. As you can see, it's not a pretty picture. All Vox had left were the few friends he still had in Nijisanji, Nijisanji itself, and his very dedicated audience. But this audience would come to learn an uncomfortable truth about him soon enough. In 2025, Reimu, the person Vox's fanbase harassed for interrupting their date, and Ike, Vox's friend and Luxium genmate, left Nijisanji, alongside a few others. But nobody would expect that one jealous girlfriend would set off a series of events that nobody could foresaw. The ex-girlfriend of Ike Eveland made a video basically accusing Reimu Endo of being a doxer and a homewrecker, saying that her ass was being flirtatious towards Ike after she and an undisclosed partner broke up. Guess who this undisclosed partner is? This made big waves in the Nijisanji community, prompting a response from Reimu, who now streamed under a different name, Mari FD. The entire drama was a hilarious fuckfest that has multiple layers, but I'm not going to cover all of it for this video. Instead, I recommend my brother's Rima Evenstar's coverage of it if you want to see the shit show that just happened.
No way, Nuzagi!
To talk about Vox's involvement, because some information in this little Twitter spat painted him in a light that his simps weren't going to like. For one, this spat had an intentional revelation that Reimu and Vox were in fact in a relationship. And fun fact, this used to be a speculation that was had by many. Reimu also vented to Ike's ex that Vox would have a crazy Parasocial fan that would send him bikini photos, a shit ton of horny super chats, would respond to him, and even make self-insert art of herself featuring being intimate with him. And Vox, unsurprisingly, seems to really like that behavior. By the way, the context of these conversations is that Reimu found out Vox was sexting with this cosplayer fan of his because she said she took a look at his phone while he was taking a shower in the same room. And when the fan Vox was sexting asked if Reimu and Vox were dating, Vox said, and I quote, "Ew, no," and It eventually resulted into Reimu and Vox having a fallout because Reimu just wasn't having any of it anymore. And when Reimu tried to pretend not to know, asking on what Vox would do if said girl would send him lewd photos, Vox responded, saying that he'd cut off their communications right there. My brother didn't know he already got caught and committed to the lie. The person Reimu is referring to here is an infamous cosplayer and member of the Niji-en community who would frequently engage with Vox a lot and do gender-bent cosplays of him as early as 2022. Vox was using his platform to actually engage with horny fans for his sexual gratification. One can really only wonder if he's only done this to just one person. I'm just saying, a person like this, a person like Vox, just doesn't stop at one girl. But you know what? I get it. Vox Akuma, I completely understand.
I make the same joke!
No, seriously, I do. This is a relationship between two consenting adults. Lots of your favorite online couples started out as a fan-creator relationship, such as PewDiePie and Martzia, or Joey, the Anime Man, and Aki Dearest. Sure, we can have the topic of an
Aki Dearest was his fan? I didn't know there was so much ship artwork between the two of them, by the way. That's the first time I see those.
Fair dynamic of that kind of relationship, but personally, I don't care. As long as said fan isn't a minor and the creator isn't a minor.
Oh, she was, but she also was a content creator. I mean, that changes things a little. And she's, you know, people talk about power dynamics, but hierarchies and power dynamics can switch within a relationship. It doesn't always have to do. Success and all of that is not an armor against falling in love. It's whoever likes the other person the better, they're kind of on the, how do you say that? That's where the imbalance lies. It has nothing to do with the material stuff you've got or the clout. It's got nothing to do with it. Things can change. Things can change. Unless the other person's like really impressed by this stuff. But if there's somebody grounded, I mean, they shouldn't be. Because technically it doesn't really matter once you're alone with somebody.
And it's also consensual. It's free game, in my opinion. The problem for Vox was that the revelation that he was in a relationship with Reimu while actively sexting a side girl is not good for an audience that is parasocial and is in love with him. I guess it also doesn't speak very well of your character, you know, being a cheater, but I think at this point, him being a cheater is one of the less impactful labels that many people are already calling him. There was intense backlash from a fair few Chinese Vox fans that followed after this drama. While yes, most of his fanbase, the normal parts of his fanbase, were just angry for him, that private details about his life were leaked because of a stupid Twitter spat, the more insane parts were throwing a tantrum. They were selling his merch, throwing away their prized collections and shrines. The hiss of it was frankly hilarious to watch. But has it affected Vox's viewership? Not really. Is it going to affect the parasocial culture for his more generous and wild fans? Absolutely. His merch buyers, his super chatters, that tiny minority from his more insane fan base is going to hurt his bottom line. Those were the types of audience that were consistently going to buy his merch, and even multiple times. The ones so horny and in love with him that they would resort to giving him money just so they can get his attention. With this incident, the illusion is broken. While there might be a few others who can consume Vox's BFE normally, I am going to guess that some of those people might not be able to enjoy it as much anymore.
Yeah.
Part of me feels bad for Vox. It feels like he was just your average guy thrown into a position of immediate power, wealth, and responsibility without any time to adjust and learn from it. He sees a lot of women vying for his attention, giving him money, trying to slide in his DMs, and he started getting into town with them. He sees all the money flowing into his bank account and cannot help but feel indebted to the person, to the ones, to the company that allowed this arrangement. Now, outside his walls, very few people are willing to extend an olive branch for him anymore. Within his walls, parts of it are on fire, a king of a bleeding kingdom. Some part of me feels...
I like his metaphors. I like the metaphors he's used throughout the videos. The kingdom, the king. Yeah, it's pretty good. The walls. It's accurate. It's an accurate way of describing this.
Like Vox isn't a malicious person. He was just overly defensive of his own turf, hostile to even the smallest threats, and insecure about his own competition. He was just stupid. But if you've been through Salengate or feel deceived by him, or even if you were a friend or acquaintance that he used to engage with, I cannot blame you for feeling that he was a bad person. Besides, there might be something else that general public and I myself doesn't know about yet. He was the king of male VTubing. He brought so much joy into many people's lives and proved to the industry at large that males can have a place in this industry. I don't think I can take that achievement away from him. Despite that, male VTubing is still not even half the level of females in this industry. Perhaps it's going to take another person to make that happen, perhaps it won't happen at all. His story is a tale of pride in action and frankly, like I said, stupidity. Levels so low is almost malicious, and while it's a tale yet to be over, he hasn't graduated, nor is his career Nijisanji seemingly close to being done.
No,
I
don't think so.
It's a tale worth remembering for the people who knew him, knew of him, and is yet to know him.
He's been a precautionary tale for Parasocial fanbase for a really long time and setting healthy boundaries.
Hi, thanks for watching my video.
Aww.
If you want to see more content and to get your name featured in the boards over here, consider joining the second tier of my membership, My Scholars. Not only do you get videos earlier and uncensored, they get exclusive access to videos reserved only for members, as well as streams for spicier dramas and topics.
Nice.
My Google Doci series is a series where I condense VTuber Google Docs that
It's crazy how DN feels less ESL than Rima. Fuck you.
To finish into digestible 10 to 15 minute videos so you don't have to. 2 episodes a month. For the Gooners, I will also happen to recommend VTuber related materials for your particular needs. Either way, liking and subscribing helps too. I will continue to brainstorm more exclusive content that will make it worth your while to give me money. Haha. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey, you! Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button, and I'll see you in the next video.